Hello and welcome to this little video of 20 Easter eggs and things you may not have noticed in what was the very first outing for my investigator of the paranormal, Sam Spallucci. That being the case of the Satanic Suburban sitcom, which you can find in 2012's The Casebook of Sam Spallucci. Now, before I carry on, first I want to say, if you feel like it, give it a quick like, give it a quick subscribe, and you're kept up to date with all these videos as they come out. But even more importantly, I want to say a big thank you to my Patreon book club members, Gemma Innes and Paul Lewis. Thank you very much, guys, for helping to make this video a reality. Your funding every month, it just really helps. Thank you so much. And if you fancy having a shout out on a video like this, then have a look at the link down below and see if my book club is for you. In fact, all the Seraph tier members receive signed copies of all new material books of mine as soon as they're published. So have a little look at that, and now we'll carry on with the video. So, number one, Sam's name. Now, I've mentioned before in other videos that Sam Spallucci actually got his surname as a mixture of the detective Sam Spade and a girl called Maria Gallucci, who actually sat next to me in the same chemistry lesson where Sam was born. When I was bored one day and I was scribbling down notes. But in the case of Satanic Suburban sitcom, and a few other times, it's actually referenced that Sam has a middle initial. He refers to himself as Samuel C. Spallucci. Little fact, we don't know what that C is. In fact, I don't know what that C is. It's just there at the moment. Perhaps it might come to fruition, as it were, later on. We'll have to wait and see. Number two, Dalton Square. This is a real part in Lancaster, like a lot of the locations. It is actually sort of like a mini park type one-way mini microcosm at the southern end of Lancaster. It was originally part of a friary which was dissolved by Henry VIII, and there was sort of like public gardens and the like for many years, until from sort of Victorian to Edwardian times it was redeveloped. And we now have sort of like this statue of Queen Victoria in the middle of it and a very imposing town hall. Number three, 15A Dalton Square. Little difference from the books to real life. In the books, 15A Dalton Square is situated above the Paradise Dragon, a Chinese restaurant in Dalton Square. However, the real 15A Dalton Square is situated above the offices which are next door. And I had actually been inside them. So the layout as it's described in the books is the actual layout we have in real life. Number four, Harry Kim. Harry is the owner of the Paradise Dragon, the fictional Chinese restaurant which lives underneath 15A Dalton Square. And yes, he is based upon Harry Kim, the character from Star Trek Voyager, a series of which I, like Sam, am a great fan. However, I made a mistake when I first wrote Casebook. I referred to Harry as being the engineer of Voyager. And as it was quite rightly pointed out to me by a reader of my book, that was actually Balana Torres. So, to cover my mistake, I turned it into Sam's mistake. And a few books down the line in Dark Justice have the sci-fi geek, Dave Nichols, the vampire, actually correct Sam on this. And he tuts at him saying, "You think you're a real Star Trek fan? How could you get that wrong?" Number five, the actual introduction to the book. Now, in the book, Sam sort of reels off the things which have happened in his first week, ending up with the fact that he has killed somebody. This is a bit of an homage to A is for Alibi, the first of the Kinsey Mulhone detective books by the late great Sue Grafton, where she does sort of the same, and basically saying that she thinks she may have killed somebody at the end of the introduction. Number six, climbing electric pylons. Sam is one for these little throwaway comments. And the climbing electric pylons, along with the next one, which follows in the next Easter egg, are sort of like the two first ones. The climbing electric pylons refers to 1970s public service announcements, sort of adverts which were around. We had ones like, don't play on train tracks, don't run on the beach, there might be broken glass. But the one which really sticks in my mind was one saying, if you throw your frisbee up onto an electric pylon, do not climb up to get it. You will die. Number 7. I hit badgers with teaspoons. Following on from the pylons, the second throwaway of Sam's is this little slogan. And basically, it's something which I once saw on a t-shirt. And I thought, I love that. At some point, I've got to use it. So I did. Number 8. Flatpack furniture. I think we can all really sympathise with Sam here when he talks about how you get hold of this wonderful cupboard or table or whatever, and the instructions are in gibberish, and you end up with sort of like this handful of screws which you feel you should have used, and you don't know where they came from. So I popped this in there, but it's also a reference to a song by local musician Alistair McKee, where he talks about this thing which he orders online. The instructions are unintelligible, and he ends up putting it back on eBay. And little point, Alistair crops up a few books later in Troubled Souls in one of Sam's dreams. And another little throwaway from Sam, he refers it to, perhaps this is one of the reasons why Anakin fell to the dark side in Revenge of the Sith, his very first sci-fi reference of the series. Number 9, Morty, Vicar. The title of the sitcom, which the Satanists obviously are making, is sort of from reality. Not a sitcom, but a saying which a flatmate of mine used to use every time he, as one might charitably put it, broke wind. He'd walk into the living room where we were living, Trump, and then go, oh, Morty, Vicar, and then walk out again. Charming. Number 10, clocks. Sam shares certain things with me, not too many, but certain things, and one of them is his love of clocks. I've acquired and inherited many over the years, some of which I put pictures online of, some of my favourites. But Sam, I thought, yeah, we've got to have this for Sam. But also, it's sort of like a showing that he's obsessed with time as well, some of which might come back to bite him later on. Number 11, the sofa isn't an auton. Autons, Doctor Who. We have another sci-fi reference here. And, you know, Sam is reassuring the chap who comes to see him about the abduction that the sofa he's sitting on isn't actually one of these plastic life forms from Doctor Who. I seem to have this memory of a sofa swallowing somebody from Doctor Who. It might have just been a weird dream. If you remember it, leave a little mention down below. It'd be great to refresh my memory and reassure me I'm not going mad. Number 12, John of Gaunt Media. John of Gaunt was a very famous sort of duke from the locality, shall we say, back before the War of the Roses, or it may have just been during the War of the Roses. Somewhere around there, my history is a little bit foggy on that period. But the gatehouse at the castle is named after him, as is a local pub. Number 13, Sam's car. In the book, Sam refers to his car as a 1983 Volkswagen Polo Classic. And this is another thing which I share with Sam. It was my car. In fact, it was the very first car that I bought. And Sam makes this little reference to, you know, Stephen King's Christine. And that's because I used to call my car Christine because it was so temperamental. I couldn't afford to get things fixed, so it's constantly breaking down when I really needed it. Also, nice little thing here is if you've got a copy of the first edition, there is a mistake. The rest of the book refers to it as a VW Polo Classic, which is what it should be. In this passage, it refers to it as a VW Golf Classic, which never existed. Number 14, Spliff. Now, I've done an at-length video about Spliff before, so hopefully, if I remember, I'll pop a little link to do with that just here. All that suffice to say here is he is based on a number of good friends, some still alive, some sadly no longer with us, who had a real positive influence on my life. And it's just nice to sort of like memorialize them. Memorize them? Memorialize? I'll go for memorialize them in this wonderful character. Number 15, Leonardo figurines. Now, when Sam goes to John Gaunt Media, he gets taken around the set and he goes into the sort of like the set for Maggie Slocum's character. And he refers to how it looks like his mum's house, but his mum had a lot more Leonardo figurines. Now, these were like real chintzy, kitschy little things from the 1980s, sort of like yay high, made from some sort of little horrid resin type thing, which you bought somebody as a gift when you didn't know what to buy them. I never knew what to buy my mum. She had loads. Number 16, Maggie Slocum. Now, as the more sharp-eyed and possibly slightly older readers will have probably noticed here, Maggie Slocum is almost a direct copy of the classic character Mrs. Slocum from the 1970s sitcom Are You Being Served? I loved it as a kid, and to be perfectly honest, it's sort of where I got the idea for the Satanic Suburban sitcom from. That and all the classics like Heidi High, Dad's Army. I watched them every Saturday. I watched the reruns when I was older. Absolutely loved them. Number 17, Rylands Park. Again, like Dalton Square, this is a real place in Lancaster. Rylands Park is a sort of like a public park to the north of the river in Lancaster, sort of like between Rylands and Skirton. And it was originally the grounds to the house of Lord Ashton. It was the same chap who funded the building of the Ashton Memorial and the funding of the town hall. Number 18, Venus. When Sam is returning to John Gaunt Media, he comments the fact that Venus is hanging in the sky. And Venus in literature and in the Bible and all over the place is sometimes referred to as the day star and even as Lucifer. So this is sort of like that first hint that the big bad fallen angel is going to be dogging Sam's life as the series progresses. Number 19, the Pentagram. Now, I'll keep it brief or I will rant. Something which really, really grinds my gears, as it were, about certain horror films is when they'll just splash pentagrams all over the place and cry, Satanism, devil worship, blah, 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 sacrifice. No, 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 no. The pentagram has many, many different sort of like uses in different religions and belief systems. It is very prominent in Wicca, paganism, and indeed, in fact, in Christianity, as Spliff quite rightly points out in this book, it represents the 5 wounds of Christ. So when we have it in the book and they've used it the wrong way up, Spliff comments on it, and it sort of saves Sam's life towards the end of the story. And finally, number 20, Jitendra Patel. When I created the Detective Chief Inspector here, I wanted to make a very real sort of character. And so I went back to my roots a bit. I grew up in the East Midlands, And where I lived as a child, there's a large Hindu population. A lot of my friends were Hindu, got to know each other really well. It's great. Loved it back then. But there was a problem with like Hindu society, in that the caste system was still very, very prevalent back then. And it's like the families with the surname Patel, they were considered the lowest of the low because they came from like outcast in like Hindu society. So giving Jitendra the Patel surname was to show him, or rather show his humble origins. But to give him the name Jitendra was a friend of mine who was from sort of like the princely caste, one of the higher castes. So it was to give my DCI this sort of like feeling that he, as well as being this grounded, normal guy, he also had like aspirations of wanting to progress in society. You know, he didn't want things to hold him back, but he wanted to do the best that he could for himself. So there you have it. Those are 20 Easter eggs, things you might not have noticed. If there's anything you want to know more about the story, or if there's something you think I've missed, leave a comment down below. Again, don't forget, quick like, quick subscribe. Keep looking for what lurks in the shadows. I'll see you again soon.